everybody. This is Carolina Millan. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Hustle. And today I'm here with a superpower woman, Amanda Kaufman. How are you, Amanda?
I'm doing great.
That's fantastic. So Amanda and we met about a little over a month ago in Puerto Rico. We were both attending a mastermind there with Brendan Burchard, Dean Graciosi, all these really cool people. And she happens to be a high performance certified coach and also a business strategist. So get ready to get some massive value here today from this awesome girl. So Amanda, first of all, thank you for taking the time to be here today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And let's start by sharing with people who might not know you yet your story, how you got started. What were you doing before you became a coach and a business strategist?
Love it. Love it. So I was born. No, I'm just kidding. So I grew up in a really small town in the far north of Canada, like super, super remote. So if there was one thing that I was certain about is that I would probably leave. I would probably be traveling. I had big visions for where I was going to go in life. And so it led me to be a bit of a nerd at school. And I did all the science classes, all the math classes. And, understanding I grew up in a really small, very isolated community, I thought my career options might include lawyer, teacher, ambulance attendant, doctor, those kinds of things that you see in every single town, right? And I never in a million years would think I'm going to become a coach or I'm going to become a business strategist or I'm going to learn how to do marketing or any of the kinds of things I'm sure we'll talk about today. But that nerdiness, I'll never forget my high school teacher. He says, have you given any thought to doing engineering? Because engineering is applied math and applied science. And I had specifically said, I don't want to be in school for the rest of my life. I'm not interested in the PhD track, but I've done all this nerdy, sciencey stuff that I know is really valuable. So I went off to be an engineer. And then, of course, I survived chemical engineering.
Chemical engineering? Oh, wow.
Chemical engineering, wow. Yeah. Like when I say nerd, just underline that. She's a nerd.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, too, when I was applying for all these jobs, I was applying at a time when the whole world was going into recession. And so, all those engineering student jobs, they were getting harder to come by. So I applied to 148 different jobs when I was in college, like holy Toledo. But it ended up being the most lovely, lucky thing ever because it brought me to consulting.
Interesting.
And so I spent 10 years working for the world's biggest consulting firm, Accenture. And I rose through the ranks and I became a strategy consultant and I worked with all these big companies and big governments and all this kind of thing. And along the way, I also got married and I have 2 bonus kids and my husband and I wanted to have kids of our own too. And now we've got 2 more. So we have like 1 million kids.
Oh, that's a lot of kids.
Yeah, so many kids. And a lot of people were like, oh, you're getting married. Does that mean you don't want to be a consultant? And this is about 5 years into my consulting career. And I was like, no, I'll figure it out. So that's what put me on the path to personal development, because I have experience working over 100-hour work weeks and burning out and getting depressed and all of that horrible stuff. I felt what golden handcuffs felt like. But through personal development, I was able to become way more efficient, so much more productive. I was able to use influence and courage and energy and all of these things to really create a pretty amazing life, even though I was traveling 46 weeks a year. So it was only natural that eventually I'd be looking around and no one else was really reading those books and no one else was really figuring this out. And I keep hearing, oh, golden handcuffs. Like I can't change my job because of the money, or I can't do this because of that. And it just broke my heart. I was like, what do you mean you can't? Of course you can. And that led me into coaching, which then led me into kind of hybridizing, I guess, between being like that high performance coach and the coach that's going to get you unstuck from my magical question asking powers and abilities. But we cannot leave behind the fact that I've been a strategist for so many years. So when it came to launching my own business, like the marketing, the sales techniques, the systems and the automation and all of that kind of stuff, just like it was so attractive to me. So, now I get to be this beautiful peanut butter and jelly sandwich of all the woo-woo kind of coaching side stuff things, but also the business strategy. So here we are.
That part is what appealed to the nerdy side of you, the strategy part, the marketing, the techie stuff, right? Which which I think a lot of coaches are probably a little afraid of.
Oftentimes they're either afraid of, or, I think the number one biggest thing that stops coaches these days is overwhelm. It's overwhelming. Like the second you put your hand up and say, I want to become a coach, your Facebook feed gets flooded, your Instagram gets flooded with all of these things, and you're watching webinar after webinar, and you're hearing from all these different experts, and it is incredibly overwhelming.
Yeah, especially if you're new, you start getting retargeted. You're like, why is this guy following me all over the internet?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So once a coach overcomes maybe the overwhelm, what would you say is the biggest challenge when starting a coaching business?
I kind of connected to overwhelm. What's the opposite of overwhelm? Focus.
I was going to say underwhelm, but no.
Underwhelm. No, stay whelmed, but be focused. I would say like the first thing, honestly, I think what really gets so many of us very stuck is our knowledge bias. And, people who become coaches, especially if they've enrolled in certification programs and they've been reading the books and their nightstand is full of all of the different personal development and all of this kind of thing, and they're obsessed with this stuff. Like, never mind the ads, like they're watching all of these influencers and gurus and people that are ahead of them that have blazed the trail. And it is still very, very overwhelming. So being able to like focus and say, okay, how do I talk to a normal person about coaching? There's this big myth that a lot of only coaches who coach coaches can be coaches. And that like stopped me so long from helping other coaches, because I was like, I don't want to be a coach's coach, because it's perpetuating this myth in our industry.
Right.
And the truth is that no one else was telling people, though, hey, your language isn't resonating with the normal person who doesn't have a nightstand full of personal development.
Exactly.
Hey, you need a system if you're going to be a one-man band. You can't just walk into a networking event and go, I'm a coach, and then have everybody go, oh my God, why didn't you say so? Here, take my money, right? Like,
if only.
If only. And I think like a lot of coaching schools and certifications, that I'm going to drop a Texas, bless their heart, bless their heart, is they're selling the career of coaching, and they're teaching how to coach, like what questions to ask and how to hold sessions. I kind of think of it like they're teaching you the product, but they're not teaching you any of the business fundamentals. Or if they are, they're doing like this really, like, usually very old, outdated, clunky, not systemized. Because the thing is that their core expertise is how to coach. It's not how to build a one-man band coaching business.
Correct.
Right. And so when we realize that, of course, we're not the only ones that realize that. Marketers everywhere know that coaches are suffering because they're spending so much money on getting the certification, they get no clients afterwards. So then it's like this big red ocean free for all of, I can help you get clients. I can help you get clients.
Right.
And I think one of the things that I'm in business with my husband, Chris, as well. What we're really committed to is we just don't want people to say, I can't live my life because of golden handcuffs, right? I can't live my life because of XYZ. And we know how powerful it is to have a coaching relationship that someone can disrupt that pattern of thinking, that you think you're stuck with the health you have, you think you're stuck with the career you have, you think you're stuck with the relationships you have. But a coach can ask you those questions that disrupts that pattern. And that's what motivates us to be like, okay, coaches, Let's have a real system. Let's really do this. And it's not just so you'll buy my course, but like, here's something actually practical that you can do. And let's systemize it so you don't kill yourself in the hustle.
So, did you ever just work with like regular people? And
Yes.
when did you decide, okay, I'm actually going to help coaches?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Um, I did start out specifically not coaching coaches. I was like, no, I'm going to make this work. And actually for the first 2 years of my business, I had a requirement that I had to personally attract and convert and support 6 figures of coaching of non-coaches, like of pure coaching,
Yeah.
right? And so what happened is about 18 months or so into the journey, I had a lot of my coach colleagues really from the certification. I have 2 certifications. They would come knocking on the door and they would say, what the heck are you doing though? Right. And I didn't make it a big secret. I told my coaching school, I'm like, hey, I made 6 figures in 8 weeks. Hey, look at me. Right. And so that was great because everybody's like, what are you doing to do that? And so at first it was like, oh, well, I'll help you on like a really short-term basis, or I'll help you, but only like do intensive or something really small and short. What changed for me was it was really just sort of a moment in my business where I had this nagging calling. And if you've ever really felt a calling, you know that it's never at the right time. It doesn't make sense. There's not a lot of logic involved. It's just like there's this pull to do it. And so I had to fight through my own bias of saying like coaches shouldn't help coaches. And you know what the thing was that I realized? I was like, what if we said that doctors should not learn from other doctors? What if we said that, right? Nobody says that.
No.
Nobody duh, of course you want a doctor to work with a doctor. So when I realized, I was like, well, of course I would want a coach to work with a coach. Like, I've gotten these really incredible results. It's so crazy that I'm not willing to help other people do that. And so when I broke through on the other side, I started looking at all of these different examples. It's like nobody says, oh, well, the only hairdresser that can make money is somebody who's teaching other hairdressers. But at the same time, it's like, would you go get your hair done by somebody who's never learned from another hairdresser?
Mm-mm.
Never, right? So why do we do that in coaching? It's ridiculous.
It is. I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
No, but that's great. I mean, I never stopped to think about that actually, but I think it makes sense because you know how they say that a psychologist has to have their own psychologist, otherwise it's weird if they don't go to a psychologist themselves. So same with coaches, like you should be getting coached, constantly working on yourself. So it makes sense that a coach will see a coach.
All right. Remember when I said underline the nerd thing?
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm a nerd. So I started doing this market research project in our own audience because we work with a lot of coaches. And so we put a market research survey as part of, our flow and our processes.
Uh-huh.
And I've got thousands at this point, thousands of coaches who have taken the time to do this really extensive survey. And I give them a really nice gift for doing so. But it's like this really extensive survey. And I'm going through it. And one of the questions was about like, what investments have you made personally to be successful with your coaching business? So it was a really open-ended question, right? Not multiple choice. And the number of people who report actually hiring their own coach was minimal, like super rare that someone would say, oh, I work with a business coach, or, oh, I hire a coach myself to work through all this stuff. So I think that's not necessarily conclusive data, but it's a lot of data to me that suggests that our industry suffers from this bizarre requirement that we should be able to self-study our way into success. And that we should have the expectation, like, tell me if this is crazy or not. Should we have this expectation that a $2,000 self-study course is going to make us $100,000 by itself.
By itself, no. Like, it didn't
And
happen
yet,
to me.
and yet, or we think, oh, well, we'll join this mastermind and we'll spend 10, 15, 20, $30,000 to join a mastermind to go to an event a couple of times a year. And that's going to be the thing that helps me break six figures. And I think what's missing in a lot of our environment, and I know like my old company, they had this figured out. One of the reasons I worked for that big consulting firm is they invest so much in learning and so much in personal development. I learned so much every year, and they flew me out to go to courses and trainings and all this kind of thing. They had me do trainings on my computer. They had me do like all these extra trainings like all the time. And so when I got into the coaching world, it's like this expectation that I should be able to buy that one course or work with that one person or do this one thing. And it was going to be like this magic bullet that was going to get me success is so prevalent in our industry. And I think it's probably because there's a lot of promises, right, by marketers that say, oh, buy this one thing and get these crazy results and do it from the beach and when you're sleeping. Like
A lot of marketers just ruined it with those promises, which nowadays are no longer allowed, but somehow they're still there. They're underlying. And yeah, I totally agree with you. It's like, but what I've seen as well from people who go from working for a big company to being independent, some of them, not all of them, some of them get used to their company paying for all this training,
Yes,
and then when
they
it's
don't even
like
see the expense.
exactly, so then you're independent, like, oh, I have to pay for a mentor myself. Well, yeah, you don't have a boss anymore paying for all your training. So some people have, they struggle with that part. Have you had any clients that had this limitation, and how do you overcome that?
Well, I think for sure. I think everybody kind of hopes that what they've invested so far is enough.
Right.
And it's like everybody hopes that.
Everybody hopes that.
Yeah. And look, I've had things that I've spent $47 on, and I'm like, this blew my freaking mind, right? And I've also invested, $60,000 just to be in one community, so I have personally invested the gamut. I've bought $2,000 courses that the marketing was great, the content was right. It wasn't going to change my life or anything. And I've also done $2,000 courses that have made me six figures, right? But I think the thing that's like really prevalent in my whole learning journey is, I hope you got from that, I take a lot of training. Like I do a lot of different courses. I read, I've read, I do a lot of audiobooks, but I've listened to audiobooks where just like one nugget of an idea can be such a like profound change to what I'm doing in my business. But there's two things there. One, I'm consuming a lot of learning and a lot of training, and I'm curating my own learning journey. And two, I'm putting things into play. So because I put things into play, the next time I come up on a course or I read a book or something, I'm getting a new perspective from someone who's done something maybe a little differently, or even the same thing, but they're a different person, so they've got a different perspective.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting distinctions. I'm putting the distinctions into play. And now we've got a business that's really like cooking and all this kind of thing. If you look at the total revenue of what our business has been able to generate in a very short amount of time, and you compare that against the amount of investment that I have made in those trainings, in the coaching, and in all of that kind of thing, you might think, wow, she spends so much money on personal development and professional development. But then you look on the other side of the result and it's like, guess what? Right?
It works.
Put it into play and you have a higher likelihood of getting, and you know what? I've put lots of ideas into play that don't work at all that I got from, some kind of a training or something. And I think just sort of our general attitude, or this expectation that I give you the money and then now I'm going to be successful. It's like, no. That's step one, right. Was your commitment to a path of learning. Then you've got to do the part where you not only watch the trainings or participate in the calls, you got to put into play and put it into action. And I think that's like the biggest hurdle that people have, because they're so overwhelmed with all the things they could do that they don't do anything.
That's right. Been there.
Been there too.
I'm
I
still
get
there
it.
some days, you know?
Sometimes.
Yeah, still happens. So, what would you say are maybe the top 3 or top 5 steps a coach needs to take in order to really jumpstart their business and get their first client? How would
Oh
you
my
tell
gosh.
someone to do that?
Thank you for this question. This is a good one. Okay, so the first thing is you just have to get super clear about what you're here to do. You know, I can't tell you how many conversations, because I work with a lot of people that are in the launch phase of their business, and we get on the phone and it's like, how much money do you want to make with the business? And that question, like, people just shut down immediately. They're like, well, enough, but you know, I'm not greedy. And, you know,
Oh, yeah. Everybody, like, nobody wants to be greedy ever.
nobody wants to be greedy ever. So here's a quick exercise, guys, that I really want you to do. You can do it with a Post-it and your phone with your mobile banking. That's fine. Figure out what your household takes to run. Right? Know your personal numbers. Because if you know your personal numbers and you know your rent costs X and your utilities are Y and you tend to go to the movies on the weekends, and, you know, like, nobody wants to talk about personal finance, but truly, I think there's probably a pretty big correlation between someone saying, I want to start a business and I have no idea how much money that business needs to make, and I have no idea how much my household takes to run, and I have no idea how much money I need to put into my future, right, to be comfortable, because money's like a crazy sensitive subject. And I would say, just like, you got to take deep breaths with me now and just get over that, because money is everywhere, and you are going to have to pay to go to the dentist, and you're going to have to pay, you know, if you've got a car, you're going to have to pay for that. Like, it's omnipresent. So you might as well start getting desensitized to it and get real about what does it cost for you to have a lifestyle that is comfortable. Because if you can take that number, some people that number is going to be $2,000. Some people it's going to be $15,000, $20,000. Some people it's going to be $100,000. It really depends on what your lifestyle is. And I'm talking about like per month, right? It depends on all of those factors. But when it comes to, well, what does my business need to do? I think sometimes we think, oh, well, whatever money the business makes, then I get. And that's not how it works. Just like when
That's
you work
not
for your corporation or your employer, the business makes money and then it cuts you a paycheck.
right.
And I think that's the big mindset shift. Like, number one thing, you need the business to make enough money that you can cut yourself a paycheck, that you're not looking for another job. And I'm not saying your business has to be like that on day one. It won't be, I promise you.
Yeah.
But if you know that's where you're headed, and that's what you've got to do. So let's just say, for example, you want to make $100,000. This is hypothetical. This is not an income claim. I'm saying hypothetically, let's say you do the math and you're like, okay, my family needs about $8,000 a month to cover all of our various commitments and expenses, and also have a little bit left for, you know, our future and all of that kind of stuff, right? Arguably you should say for the future first, but I'm not a Dave Ramsey. I'm just saying, like, there's a number. If it let's say that for your family, for your household, that's 8,000, but then let's also just assume that you're probably going to take some time off, and every business has cycles, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't sell a ton of coaching at Christmas,
Right.
right? Because people are like, oh, I'll get to it in January, or I'm really busy right now. So there's natural ebbs and flows of the business. So what I like to do is assume a 10-month year. I'm like, whatever I need to do financially, I'm going to do it in 10 months. So I get 2 gravy months.
Well,
And so then my
a smart
monthly
way to do it.
target,
Yeah.
isn't that smart,
I like
right?
it. I like it.
Yeah. So your monthly target is simply what you need to make in the year divided by 10.
Cool.
So a lot of people come to me and they're like, I want to be a 6-figure coach, you know, because it's a really common number. It's not because it's backed up by their actual finances, but it's a common number. So that would mean that it would be about $10,000 a month that would be the target for your business. And if you happen to be a coach, well, the next step is to say, how many coaching clients can I have? Right. And, I find the sweet spot is somewhere between like 10 to 15, 15 being a super upper limit. I know of coaches that do 20 and more, but the challenge when you get so many clients like
Per
that
month?
is you've got to have shorter sessions. You have less buffer to be able to move people around if natural things happen with schedules, and you have no time for building your business otherwise. So let's just say 10 for our illustrative purposes here. If you've got to do $10,000 a month and you can take 10 clients, then that means every client has to be paying you at least $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you know that, if you know all of those things, then you can start getting into like fancy footwork around packages and, exactly what's are included and all the features and all of this kind of stuff. But if you're starting the game with what most coaches start with, which is your niche, that's number 2. You got to ditch the pitch. You got to release that attachment to your niche. A lot of coaching schools teach niches because they think that will help you. But for most people that I've worked with, they haven't been outside the bubble of their current community enough to have really in-depth understanding of the different niches that are really out there. So I would say step number 2 is ditch the requirement for the niche, know what your price point has to be, and get out there talking to people about how your coaching can help, and listen for the coachable goals. And use that as a way to inform. It's like, oh, this person is starting a business, and that person is starting a business, and that person is starting a business, and they're all getting stuck on the same thing. Can I coach around that? Right? So you're actually using conversations with actual human beings to inform where you might want to focus based on what you bring to the table. Nobody wants to do this, right? No. Everybody wants to have like the personal brand and all of that kind of stuff figured out. And then they're going to go and find these imaginary people.
Exactly. They want their brand, and then my brand is going to attract these imaginary people. That's how it works.
Exactly. So step 3 is you have to, so step 1 was get real about your numbers. Step 2 is ditch the pitch, release the niche, just, be in the world and discover it. The third piece, you got to do your own work, right? So the reason why people put the brand and everything ahead of everything else is that they're not doing their own personal work. And so what's happening is they're saying, I don't want to make a fool of myself. I've got to have really pretty fonts and gorgeous photos because I don't want to be made fun of, and I don't want to be not taken seriously. And that's a lot of like ego and ego and ego. So 3 is like, you have an ego. I have an ego. You have an ego, right? We all have egos. So step 3 is, what are you going to do about making sure that your ego is appropriately engaged, right? Giving you some confidence, but not stopping you from taking action, right? And I know I'm going to sound super cliche in saying this. Work with a coach, right? To figure out like, what is your motivation? Are you doing it for the fame and the stardom? Are you doing it for impact? Is this particular strategy or action that you're taking over the next 30 days in service of making you look good, or in service of getting back to the number? Right. That's the power of the coach, is they can help you discern these things. And I would say that, like, of the clients who have smashed it, like I've had some clients really smash it, they're really good at step number 3. They allow themselves to be coachable, and they allow themselves to do things that are scary, and they are willing to take that leap, but they don't do it by themselves. They do it because we've had a coaching process together. Right? So that's number 3. Number 4 is stop thinking that it's going to be the big move. Right? I mean, you've done so many of these episodes, right, for your podcast?
Yes.
Can you imagine if you just did like one episode of the podcast? Now you happened to start this podcast with a pretty incredible episode. I was listening to it. But like for a lot of people, like doing that first episode of the podcast, they do it and then they look at like 3 people downloaded it. It was like 2 of them were a test of theirs and one was their mom, and they think, oh my God, like I can't do a podcast.
It's how it is.
That's how it is, right? So building a business, and especially a coaching business, especially something that's so trust-based and so intimate, it really is an endurance sport. Like this is how, like, stop thinking that I'm going to do that one masterclass or that one podcast or that one email series and that's going to make it rain, because it's not going to make it rain.
It's
right. I love you, but no. Right. Again, the most successful people that I've worked with, it's when we've said, what's my weekly process going to be? What are the activities that I'm going to show up to when it's boring, when it's frustrating, when it's hard? I'm going to do those things over and over and over again. Figure out what those over and over and over again things are, and make darn sure that those are things that are going to move the needle in your business. Really good example. My husband and I do a daily live show on our Facebook page and our Instagram. We do it every day. We've done it for over a year, every single day.
That's commitment.
And so it's commitment, right? That's an endurance sport, right? And so when I say that and people go, whoa, the next question is it worth it? And I will tell you, it is so worth it. Do you know how I know?
How do you know?
Because I get on a sales call, I get on a consult call, and they say, oh my gosh, I feel like I already know you. I just binge watched a bunch of your episodes. I love you. I love Chris. I think you guys are like the real deal, and you're really going to help me. And it shows up in my sales call.
There
right?
you go. Mm-hmm.
I would not do a daily live show if I wasn't getting feedback that, of course, that's helping the sale happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's helping the impact happen. And so that's what, meanwhile, there's things sometimes people show up to every day. A good example might be like, if you keep joining the same networking group and you've been going to the same networking group for like a year, and every month it's the same people, and every month you're not walking away any brighter or any stronger or any more connected, right? That is not, that's having endurance, but it's not necessarily going to be something that's going to move the needle for you. So you want to make sure you're looking for those needle movers and commit to it being an endurance sport.
Mm-hmm.
The fifth thing is stop thinking that you are simply a service provider, right? So a lot of coaches, they're like, I just want to coach. I'm just a coach. You're not just a coach. If you want to just be a coach, go find a job. Like there are companies now that are hiring in their HR department people on the basis of coaching.
Tons of
right?
them, yeah.
Yeah, tons of them. If you want to build a business as a coach, then you, my friend, are a CEO, right, of a business. And that means you've got to make hard decisions like, what's our marketing campaign structure going to be?
Right.
How are we going to resource this? And when you can pull your head out of I'm just a coach and into I am the CEO, one of the reasons we really hit it off is I was like, man, I've got all these CEO coaches that I'm working with. How cool would it be for them to learn more about affiliate marketing? Because when you're in the CEO role, you can start thinking, well, what are my additional product offerings? When's the right time to go to a group? When should I launch my course? When should I do my membership? How can I do some collaborations with other coaches? And now you're really starting to think on a totally different strategic level.
Yes.
And that is going to serve you so much better than saying I'm the best coach in the world. Because even Tony Robbins never says I'm the best coach in the world. Have you noticed that?
Oh, I mean, his documentary is called I Am Not Your Guru. So
right?
he's the definition of guru, and he's out there denying it. So obviously.
Obviously, like here's a man who knows that he still has room to grow, right? And he's so accomplished.
Yeah.
But he does not pitch to you, hey, come
I'm the
join
best.
my live event because I'm the best coach. Right?
He
That's not a message that lands.
the insane thing is that he could, but he's smarter than that. Like he gets that would be it wouldn't connect with a lot of people, you know.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying you got to master that ego,
Yeah.
because the conversation, and you look at Tony, you look at any of like the really big, the big coaches and the big influencers, their message is always about the transformation.
Correct.
It's always about, are you wanting to step up to your potential? Are you tired of feeling like you're going through the motions in life? The whole message is aimed at the person who's coming to the seminar, not at I'm the most amazing bombdiggity.com, right? And when we show up with that kind of message, like I'm so good, I've got all these things, I'm not saying don't credentialize, I'm not saying don't work on you being the best you can possibly be, but I am saying that when you're operating as like that CEO, then you're going to say, okay, well, what's the message that my market needs, or what's the message that the audience needs? And you can take yourself out of it and do what's best for the business, which is ultimately going to be best for you too. But
Yeah.
it's going to be best for your clients. It's going to be best for the people you collaborate with, because you've got that mindset. So those are like the 5 things. How'd I do?
Nice. I
Did I do
love it.
5?
You did great. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
You did 5. I was like, is she gonna stop at 3? I hope not.
We can't stop at park your ego.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
would not be nice.
No. So here's something I'm curious about. So when doing this live show for a whole year or longer, I don't know how
Yeah.
long you guys have been doing that. You see the results because when you get on the phone with people, they say, "Hey, I watch your show," right? But have you seen like any exponential, so to speak, growth in the attendance? Like, do you see a lot more people showing up than a year ago, or it's about the same people and that doesn't matter? Because here's the thing: a lot of people don't do that. They don't keep going because they expect to go viral in like the 3rd month, and oh, I'm not
Yeah,
going
and I'm not
viral.
Rihanna, so I can't, you know, I don't have the fame, right? And one of my claims to fame is like I made 6 figures in coaching business out of a Facebook group that had 47 people in it.
There you go.
There you go, right? I started my coaching business just over 3 years ago with 8 people on my list, right?
Love it.
Now, I didn't make 6 figures out of 8 people. Like that would have been like crazy, amazing. But the point is that I am the queen of like stealthy small and getting massive ROI out of it. And the thing is, I have to watch that too, actually, from an ego standpoint. But like, I know that about myself. So then I'm like, oh, well, it's fine. I can just like play a little smaller. So I have to like play bigger and be, give permission
Sure,
for that. But,
sure.
but I want to share it with you from a learning standpoint. With the live specifically, it was like nobody watched for months. Like there was a couple of watches, a couple, existing clients that we had organically, and they're like, this is great, and the other thing is like, I think Chris and I really sucked at first. And that's another kind of ROI piece too, is like sometimes ROI is you're getting more engagement and you're getting more business. Sometimes ROI is you're really comfortable having an organic conversation online. Right. So when I get proposed, hey, can you do a podcast? I was like, no problem. Like I have no issue with showing up today because I show up every single day. Right.
Yeah.
So there's like a personal growth aspect too. Don't forget to account for that when you're thinking about ROI. I will say that about the 6-month mark or so, we started actually having people watching us live for most of the shows. Meanwhile, I'm running ads. I'm building my audience through ads. I'm building my audience in my email inbox. We're showing up on Instagram. We're showing up on Facebook. And we're just kind of doing this like every day, every day, every day. And it's really over a year now. And we expect to see up to maybe I think the most we've had live at once was like 30. But the thing about live is that people tend to watch on the replay. So if you're not already doing this, make sure when you're going live, you're not using your personal Facebook account, use a business page and go to business.facebook.com to access that page. Because when you do, then you'll be able to see the insights on that page. Go to insights, go to videos,
Yeah.
and then you'll be able to see how many views you're getting. So it's now getting, when we first started, we were getting like double digits views, like 12 views, 22 views, really small
Yeah.
numbers. Now we go to do lives and it's kind of weird if we get less than 300, right? And some of them go all the way up to 1,000 views, and they're not highly produced. We just do it here in my office.
Yeah.
Like it's super conversational. But we get all of that traffic that we can then, if we wanted to, create audiences around those videos. Like we've got a lot of things that I'm still figuring out the systems, honestly, to be able to capitalize on this properly.
Yeah.
But I see the potential for it. And I think the biggest thing that we get out of it is it's a conversation every day with our audience, and they know that we're going to be there. So it's a huge trust builder.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. No, I love it because that's going to be inspiring for people who are listening or watching. Be like, oh, okay, so for me to build a 6-figure coaching business, or for me to go live every day, I don't need massive numbers. I just need to be able to get the ROI. And in order to get the ROI, I need to be adding massive value. It's not getting 1,000 views, because you could be getting 1,000 views and nobody's buying and nobody's calling, right? But
totally. And I don't want to misrepresent too, like in terms of our business and our numbers, like we do fine. We do pretty good,
of course,
like with our little
business. I know you do.
But we don't get customers from the live. That's not what the role of the live is. What the live's role is, okay, so here's the metaphor I always use for marketing. Think of your business like it's a house party, right? Great house party, like they've got the food, the music, and maybe you've got like some VIP rooms. That's your membership. You've got a lot happening kind of in a big, exciting house party. And the thing is that people are going to be leaving the house. Sometimes they're going to be like, I don't like this music anymore. This isn't the kind of party I thought I wanted to be at. And that's cool. You just let them go and you wish them well. And that's your unsubscribes. Then you're also got to be out in the world inviting new people to the party. Cause if you've ever been hanging out at a party for a really long time, and it's all the same people, they kind of run out of their stories and the energy starts to deplete. So I kind of think of it like, okay, I'm doing ads as an enticement to come to the party. I'm writing emails to my list daily to keep the music playing. I'm doing Facebook Lives so that they've got like different kinds of entertainment going on in the party. And so it's a very vibrant, exciting place to be. That's the role of the lives. Sometimes we attract new people, right? Like there is some organic reach, like Facebook Lives right now are the best way to get organic reach off of a business page. It just is.
Yeah.
Right? Even if they're watching on replay, right? If I take the same video and I re-upload the video to Facebook, it's like it won't perform the same way as it did if it was originally broadcast live. So it can help invite new people to the party because they go, oh, this is kind of cool. This is really interesting. But that's kind of like you're walking along the street and you hear the music playing from inside and you poke your head in and go, oh, this is cool. And you might stay or you might not. It's not as targeted as doing like an ad that goes to a specific lead magnet kind of an engagement. I hope that wasn't too advanced, but that's really how I think about the context of lives, because I think people see it and they think, oh, that's how she makes her money. And I'm like, no, honey, like it's part of a bigger system.
Yeah, no, it's super clear. Like it's part of the system. It's like there isn't just one single activity you'll be doing for the rest of the life of your business, and that's the only thing you have to do.
Right.
Because that way you have multiple things going on. Like that's the way I see it. Like my YouTube videos are out there, then I put them on Facebook, then there's my Instagram, and then it's like a mix of everything. But then, what is the core way that you, or the main avenue for you to get clients? Is it mostly paid ads?
Um, it's okay. So my business started and I did multi six figures for a couple of years without doing ads at all,
Beautiful.
right? Which is awesome. So what I do? Well, I left my house. I put my pants on, I left my house, I networked, I went to hang out in all kinds of different rooms. And I found that being out in the world networking with people, our fascination and basis of trust was so potent that I was able to fill my private practice really quickly at very high ticket prices. So that's what I did at first. Later, I was like, look, I have to get on airplanes to go to a lot of these events because I'm going to special events. And that's exhausting. I left a 46 a year travel job. I'm not going to replace it with like a bunch of required travel for this one. So I decided to go ahead and learn how to do ads. And I think the thing is like everybody thinks, oh, it's just ads. That's not what makes the money, honey. What makes the money is the thing that you're driving them to, adding value enough that they go, oh, I'm going to take you up on your offer to have a call, which is the main way that I started making money through ads, or just go ahead and enroll in my program. So if you've got like a low enough price point, you should be able to create marketing content and collateral that gives value and then is persuasive enough that people can purchase. But still to this day, like we make most of our, like the vast majority of our income is from people who've been in the house party for a while. So I don't necessarily do as well front of funnel, just being totally honest about that. But I make up for it because we've got a rock and house party on the back end of it. And so, we also do referrals from our very happy existing clients is another big source for us. And it's just, we just look at the ads as like, that's a way to keep growing the house party and making up for the people who are leaving the party. And that's how we're scaling.
I was curious about that because it's like I said before, it's like this mix of things, and I love that you are doing like all of these activities, and you see the ROI, like you see the results. So it's also, I think, motivating for people to see that, hey, you don't need to start with a big advertising budget. You don't need to start with a huge audience or a huge list. Like I didn't start that way. You didn't start, like nobody started that way, unless you inherit your dad's list or something. You
Right.
don't. So no, that's amazing. So Amanda, I don't want to take too much more of your time. I just looked at the time;
That's
we're way over.
okay.
But what would be your advice for coaches or entrepreneurs in general who are listening or watching and they're struggling right now with where their business is going, how to shape it, how to get clients, like they're struggling in general? What's your advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Struggle is part of the journey,
Uh-huh.
you know. I can't remember who said this, but they said it really recently, and I'm like, oh, that's gold. So I'm sorry for not quoting properly, but it was basically like Tom Bilyeu. Yes, I remember it. So
Oh,
Tom Bilyeu recently said, um, when I'm going after a goal, success is not guaranteed, but the struggle is, right? And I was like, oh, that's so
oh,
good.
bumper sticker.
Like if you're not struggling, babe, then that means you're not playing. Right?
Truth. Hashtag
It's
truth.
like super truth, right? I was like, oh man, that's some gold. So if you are in struggle, I think the thing that I would first recommend, and this is crazy, because it maybe is not exactly business advice, it's you advice, right? And so if you're really feeling that struggle, it's like, oh, it's not going to work and all that kind of thing, there's a very good chance that you are attacking your own personhood in that. And you're saying that the business isn't good because I'm not good, or the business isn't good because I'm not good at these things. or, I want this so bad, nobody understands me. And you're kind of, what happens is when we really, really get into the struggle, it's because we're telling ourselves that we can't figure it out. And we're telling ourselves that we're not good enough and it's never going to be better. And the thing is that struggle is inevitably part of building the business, right? Otherwise, everybody would have a thriving business.
Right.
And I think the first thing we have to do is sleep, right? You have to, like, if you're staying up all night worrying about this stuff and you're grinding and hustling, it's like the opposite of what you should do. What you should do instead is like make yourself go to bed at a good hour, have a nice meal before bed, good hour, wake up in the morning and rub the sleep from your eyes, get some movement in, and, get some meditation in, get some perspective in, right, of the world in general and how much gratitude you have to be grateful for. And what that'll do is in the next step, sit down and be specific about what you are struggling with. Because if you're specific about what you're struggling with, the next step is to say, who do I know that I could listen to, watch a YouTube of, reach out to? Who do I know that's going to help me with this specific struggle, and go get some help with it? Because you're not figuring it out on your own, and your ego is telling you that it's because you're not good enough. And I'm telling you, ego, park it, right? There are people in this world who do what we do because we want to see more people succeed. And if you're just struggling in isolation, get some sleep, get your head screwed on, and then get the help you need.
There you go. Simple and, just straight to the point. That's what we all need to do when we're struggling, which happens to all of us.
Right. Yeah. If you're a millionaire, that advice works.
It works at every level. So, girl, that was fantastic. Thank you so much for delivering this much value. Thank you so much for your time. And where can people follow you, find you, if they want to show up for your show every day? Is it Instagram, Facebook? Where can they find you?
Yeah, go to Facebook and search for The Crush Method. That's CRUSH, Crush Method.
The Crush
You'll
Method.
find me and Chris there every weekday. We do our live video, and you can check out our stuff there. And if you want to listen to our podcast, it's thecrushmethodshow.com. That'll take you to Apple Podcasts.
Excellent. Thecrushmethodshow.com. All right. Thank you so much once again. Thanks to everybody who was listening or watching. Let us know what you thought of it. Reach out to Amanda. Reach out to me. I would love to hear what you got, what value you got from this episode. I think it was awesome. And thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure. My pleasure.